back, Diney. Another week. I don't know where the weeks are going. Do you?
I know. Look, all I know is quite honestly, like watching the growth of Over the Back Fence with my bestie almost brings me to tears because this year it's all come to fruition,
Hasn't it?
And it's we're writing a book, we're on the talk circuit, we're emceeing unbelievable events, and
Travelling.
We're travelling. We've got so much going on, and I don't know. I'm just sitting here and I just feel so content and so happy and so fulfilled. Here I am in my mid-60s and I'm living my best life.
You know what's funny? You say that because I'm actually like just full of gratitude. No, I don't want to sound corny, but I really mean it, and to all the listeners. But I do. It's sort of like now. It's a birthday month for me.
Yay!
And
I'm having a party for you next Friday.
This one he will never let me get away with it. And I'll say no. But she loves it, exactly. Get the shakers out.
I said, look, we just get
happen.
a few. I think there's like 50 now.
Yeah. But when you stop and reflect, and life is, as Sue Bell said, life is chapters, and I love that, which it is. And we all have good chapters and bad chapters and ups and downs in life. But I actually sort of thinking for a woman of my age was going, you know what? I can honestly say with this birthday, I actually feel probably one of the most content within myself I think I've ever felt, and so it's sort of kind of a good feeling. And hey, having you by my side, Didi, is just gold.
You make me
and
want
to
cry
do, I've always said, do what you love what you do. And, so we're really lucky. And what about the weekend? Did you get up to anything?
Look, I went to Din-Din's with, I've been so busy. And, never ever, guys, let go. Don't lose touch with your girlfriends.
Yep.
As Nicola knows, when one of Mum's girlfriends was dying, and around her bed, I was blessed to be present by this woman's bed, and her family were outside. She wanted her girlfriend. Oh, why am I getting emotional again? And she had her girlfriends around her. She was literally dying. She actually died the next day. And what they were saying to her and lifting her and goosebumps, everything. I'll never forget it as long as I live. And it was girlfriends.
Yeah.
And no matter how busy you are, even if it's a text, even if it's a phone call, never, ever, ever forget to reach out and see how everyone's doing. I've been busy. I can't wait to catch up.
Yeah, I agree.
So I did that on Saturday night, and it was a long-winded way of answering
that.
But
that's fantastic.
But and then I came home and I had a friend over, and he had the fire going, and I went, oh my God, it's autumn. How exciting,
The change of seasons is quite good, isn't it?
And what about you cheeky monkey?
Well, I actually had a bit of a social Saturday. I started off with a brunch, girlfriend's brunch, and then I went to a lunch, a memorable one.
I'm only laughing because it was memorable.
It was memorable, but it was kind of, it's fun in life too. I sort of went with a friend who I hadn't seen for quite a long time, and there was a whole new circle of people. But, life, it's a small world out there, and, so that was great, and friendship is so important. And, talk about lunches.
Oh, yes.
We have been to a few good lunches, and remember that great lunch we went to at, was it the Manly Pav that we went to? Was it? Yep. We went there. Manly Pavilion. Yeah. And so who did we see?
We've got.
Don't
you love it? We're gas-bagging over here.
We've got two gorgeous women,
two dynamic, remarkable
really
women, independent of each other. They're remarkable. But look, we're going to start with the intros. And
who have we got?
We have Nici Andronicus and Tanya Taylor Frost sitting opposite, who'd be listening to us gas bagging. Nikki, just to fill you in, is a former world-ranked athlete who represented Australia in triathlon and modern pentathlon throughout the 1990s. I love the 1990s when I have my kids.
Yeah. Woohoo, same.
She competed in 10 world championships and over 90 international events, becoming a 3-time national champion in both disciplines and reaching world number 2 in 1997. She's also, let's just add it to the list. She's a proud mum of 5. I'm exhausted.
I know, we haven't even gone through it yet.
I've been to the gym. No, it's not that. Her sporting success taught her the power, no doubt, of grit and mindset, which became life-saving tools when her husband Paul was diagnosed with brain cancer while they were expecting, believe it or not, their 5th child. Nikki fought fiercely alongside him, drawing on the strength and resilience she built through sport. She's worked with a range of impactful organisations, including Cure Brain Cancer, 10 by 10 Philanthropy, and most meaningfully, the B Centre.
Woohoo.
We first heard
which we were right behind.
Nikki speak.
Oh, what a lunch that was. Actually, that lunch
yeah.
went on for a long time.
Do you know what?
I think I got home at 2 in the
Sure
morning or
did.
something
Yeah,
on
you
that
did.
one.
I
had
was
a big
good
one.
girl. I
It
was driving
fun.
to Orange that day. Her keynote was, we both agreed, was unforgettable, raw, real, and deeply, got goosebumps already, deeply moving. And in finishing up, because I could go for 3 days,
I know.
she now continues her mission and service and impact as General Manager of the Giants Foundation, which we'll unpack. But it was her voice at that B Centre lunch that truly stayed with both Nicola and I. And we knew that day, and we both said it at the same time, we had to bring her to you guys at the back fence.
I know. So, and also, I am honoured to have my good friend here, Tanya Frost, who is the CEO of the B Centre. And, you know, it's a very special organisation helping children navigate trauma and big emotions through play therapy and early support, creating a safe, nurturing space where kids can heal and grow. She was the director of the Sydney Skinning, and yes, we actually stripped down, which I kind of like doing sometimes.
Great charity.
And joined in last year, and a proud mum of 2. Tanya's a passionate force for children's mental health and well-being, a fierce advocate for early intervention. I met Tanya through Wild Women on Top, first of all on a hiking trip
to France. It's the funniest name, that.
I love it. It was so good. And we actually shared a tent together. We've got a story about that later. She's strong, wise, warm, beautiful, and everything she does is driven by heart. 2 powerhouse women. Welcome to the back fence.
Yeah, welcome, guys.
Thank you so much.
Actually, you know, something I didn't know. Like, how did you guys meet up?
Yeah.
Through the B Centre.
Through B Centre.
Yeah.
So Nikki is an ambassador for us and has been for many, many years.
Yeah.
Chris Hemsworth brought us together, actually.
Oh, that's a good one. Come on.
Are you being serious?
Yeah, I am, except not really.
Come on, spill.
So
It's just a chance to say something fun. No, I was asked to come and MC an event for B Centre right at the very early stages of B Centre's creation. And the reason that Chris Hemsworth brought us together was that the film that we were using as a fundraiser was his very first one, Thor.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah,
wow.
so
Nikki.
It's always easy to remember exactly how long I've been working together with B Centre, and so I'm delighted to now be working with Tanya there. It's a wonderful charity, and I can't speak highly enough of the work that they do. Not just because I first became involved all the way back then, but because as my children were growing up and faced with really big trauma, we needed B Centre ourselves personally. So had the experience as, you know, the chance to be an ambassador, but then later on, you know, thank God for the B Centre, because I don't know what would have happened to my family without them.
Life? You know, so you know how things happen, and you know it's like when you're giving back, and you never know in life when you need things too. So, wow.
So you actually went to the B Centre with one of your children?
Yeah, so about 5 or 6
fabulous.
years later, after we first sort of became involved, one of my children, we had this terrible scenario where for about 3 months he wouldn't go to school. And so...
Now, you're a mum of 5, aren't you?
Yes.
And what pecking order is this?
This was the 5th.
The 5th one, your baby.
And arguably the most impacted by my husband's brain cancer, because, you know, we all know a little bit about the trauma that can affect a child in the womb. So clearly we had the worst of the worst experience while he was still just 20 weeks in my tummy. So, he then, you know, became pretty distressed at about year 1 at school. Couldn't get him there, and was only B Centre that helped him to sort of work through his trauma and his emotions. And B Centre doesn't sort of ever profess to solve the trauma. It can't ever take the trauma away, but it can certainly help children with mechanisms and ideas for how they can cope and, you know, get more familiar with how to be normal kids despite the fact they've been through something pretty horrific.
Well, so what was your boy like? You know, what was sort of like the sort of symptoms with your son?
It's a really good question, because it started out sort of unusually with little things like a school shoe would go missing, and he'd say, "Oh, well, I can't go to school if I don't have my shoes."
Excuses, right.
And so little by little, you know, that I'd cotton on to the fact that I'd find one in the garbage bin, one of those school shoes.
Wow.
And at the very end,
It's
you know,
probably something I did.
You know,
But 1 of 8, no one would ever have noticed.
it's also pretty clever though, right?
Yeah, very.
And to be honest, in those days when it was a pretty, you know, big life, you know, lots of hospital appointments, there was constantly something going on. It was quite often easier to let him stay at home. So for me, it took me a while to actually realise what was happening. In the end, I did manage to get him into the car. We're driving to school. And a little bit like the Incredible Hulk, he got a hold of his shirt and ripped it, and the buttons flew off in every direction and hit the windscreen, and everyone in the car was so freaked out by this big moment. And he was screaming and really angry. And that's when I realised, we need to get some help. And fortunately, having spent, 3 or 4 years by this stage working with the B Centre, I knew exactly where to go for help.
Lucky. So you just indicator on, let's go straight there, literally.
Yeah.
Wow. And what the outcome?
It took about 2 or 3 months, and interesting for us that it was probably equally impactful that my husband went along to those therapy sessions too, because one of the big issues was he had the ongoing symptoms of the brain cancer that was ongoing trauma in our family. And so my son was reacting to what he was witnessing and experiencing. And so the therapists actually worked equally with my husband on his parental role. So B Centre, is most importantly working with the children, but there are programs also that help adults to be able to parent within the trauma and help children through that process too. So it was actually my husband's behaviour that changed most significantly, and that helped a great deal.
Wow. So can you sort of share that? We're sort of going to go into background, but where we are now, tell us what happened with your husband.
So in 2005, no, not at all. In 2005, the first of the symptoms started and was pretty distressing at the time. As I said, fifth baby was coming.
Of course, you in utero. Oh my God.
Yeah. In fact, and this son who's now 18, he still to this day knows that he was actually responsible for saving his dad, because if I hadn't become pregnant, I probably would have given up. We were marching through doctors and psychology and psychiatrists' offices, and pretty much all of them were saying, he's having a midlife crisis, some kind of nervous breakdown. No one said, let's scan his head and see what's going on in there.
Because how was he behaving then? What was he doing?
Okay, I'll give you the worst story because it probably describes best how radical, and it built up slowly. So forgive me that it sounds like very strange that it took this for me to
Not
act.
at all.
But one day we're sitting around the dinner table, and my husband came roaring through the front door home from work, and he was a bit late coming in, about 6:30, 6:45. And rather than stopping at the table and sitting with us, he actually ran out onto the back deck, which was already 2 stories up, climbed up the outside of the deck and onto the roof because he thought there were aliens landing on our roof.
Okay,
coming
that's
to get
unusual.
us.
Right, yeah.
And we'd had a
Poor
few
thing,
lesser
yes.
episodes that were similar.
You're going the lambs
And
on.
you know what? It's and thank you for sharing this, because you know what? Sadly, you're not alone. So there's listeners here with children, with husbands,
Absolutely.
and that. And
So,
wow.
so how did that move on from there? Like that's just beyond.
Yeah.
Really?
So not long after, there had been a few other little symptoms, like a slightly swollen appearance to one of his eyes. They located a tumour that was about 5 centimetres wide and 2 centimetres thick, just behind his eye. And so that was pressing quite hard on his front left lobe, which was one of the reasons why these behaviours started to progress. Pretty quickly, within a week, there was a surgery to remove that initial tumour. We thought at first it was a non-invasive style of a tumour, and in fact the surgeon said, just go home and get better, because I would bet my house that that's not cancer. Unfortunately, 2 weeks later the pathology came in, and it was adenoid cystic carcinoma of the lacrimal gland.
Geez, you've got that down, Pat. That's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Haven't you?
So that
Yeah.
sounds rare, because I've not heard of a cancer
Extremely
like this.
rare.
You never know in
Yes.
life, do you? You know,
No,
with your
Nicola.
problems and things there, and
Yeah.
you're living day to day, and bang,
Make
how
the
your
most
life
of every
changes
day.
like that.
Yeah.
And so what happened from there?
Well, the first thing was there was not a single treatment in Australia. In fact, the oncologist that we saw initially told us that my husband could expect between 6 and 18 months survival, which, when you're sitting there with a baby in your belly 20 weeks in.
And 4 others at home.
Yeah, it was a pretty terrifying prospect, and interesting that at the time I begged him to survive. I said, we can beat this, we're clever, we can do anything to survive this. And I went home and started researching. It was right at the very beginning of the internet sort of taking off. And so I found myself in these chat rooms with people from all over the world. And there were very, very few people who were in there talking about adenoid cystic carcinoma. And I found one woman who said, you should talk to Professor Norbert Liebsch at Harvard Medical School. He's the one who knows the most in the world about this. Fast forward, and I begged from the bottom of my heart for my husband to get access to a clinical trial that Professor Leipsch was running. Initially, they knocked him back. His tumour was too big and far progressed for them to take him on. But I did send in a photo of our children and my pregnant belly.
They didn't realise Nici Andronicus was behind it. The
It's
force
a
behind
bit
it.
like
Little
just
did
thinking
they
know.
of Julie Randall.
That's what I'm thinking of. Patient 71.
Yeah, who did a similar thing.
So
That's a weirdness because my husband was patient 17.
Oh, stop.
The opposite of 71.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
but
It's been-
perseverance. You see, it pays off.
And
Persistence,
similar
patience.
sort of stories herself.
Yeah.
And she just sort of but she's survived. Thank
Yes,
you. And so
yes,
she sent a
yeah.
text today. So
Yeah. So therefore,
So the interesting thing is, and this is a really important lesson for anyone who gets a diagnosis like this, at the time the treatment worked and it was phenomenal. It was very successful. He survived 7 years before the cancer recurred. But the really most important thing about that is he survived long enough for medicine to have big breakthroughs in cancer treatments. So immunotherapy became a thing and it had never existed in the first round.
Julie had,
So immunotherapy
Absolutely.
became the next option. And then the immunotherapy kept him going long enough that there were new surgeons with new tactics and techniques to try different types of surgeries because by this stage, sort of 14, 15 years later, which if you think about the initial prognosis was remarkable, we got access to these opportunities to do things differently. And in the end, he survived 16 years. He passed away almost 4 years ago now.
okay, I
gosh.
wasn't sure
once
about
and
that.
and
Bless you.
condolences for that.
Yes,
But 17 years, so you had that time.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, you know what this is about? When someone's ill in the family, there's someone that just stands up to be counted, no matter what emotions are running around the body and family, extended family. At the end of the day, and I did repeat before, I'm going to repeat what I said previously about Nici Andronicus as the background. You had resilience.
Yeah.
And I'm going to bring in being a sportswoman here because I want to know, because to be an elite athlete, I'm not a sportswoman. This is Sporty Spice here.
Not in the league of Nikki.
I'm not a sportswoman, but I'm
or
fit.
Tanya's a Sporty Spice
But
too.
it takes a lot to become an elite athlete. What do you draw on to? I'm talking about resilience with your husband's illness. What do you draw on to be an elite athlete at the level you were just revered around the world?
So I will tell you that it's 100% your coaches, but it's not the coaches that you would expect. So in my time, there were times specifically when my swimming coach or my athletics coach really did help me through very difficult times. And sometimes that was injury or overcoming disappointment. So many things could happen where my coach, my actual athletic coach, was the person who pulled me out of what I was in and helped me to learn hands-on that just turning up and trying again and not giving up was the right pathway forward. But your coach isn't always linked to your sport specifically. I also found I had coaches in my life who were also my friends. And so I loved hearing you talk about your girlfriends and never leaving too much time before you reach out and connect again, because in my time, I can very confidently say that some of those coaches were my beautiful friend, Lane Beachley, and possibly other friends who may or may not be well known, another podcaster, Paula McGrath,
Yes.
my incredible friends that I met through sport, Natasha Barclay, who has overcome breast cancer, and my divine friend Sal. They are also my coaches because they coach me in specific areas of need. It might have been to overcome some of the massive pitfalls that we faced through the cancer years, or it might have just been to keep my wheels on when things were really tough. But coaches
But at
are
the end
everything.
of the day, you did it though.
Yeah, it has to come down to you. But
correct.
It's great that you give
Feedback.
those
Yeah.
acknowledgements to the people there, isn't
Absolutely.
it? So,
But you're on your own once you get out there, whether you're running or swimming
and I
or
guess then,
rowing or
Nikki,
whatever.
those things that you learnt there just sort of like then translate through all areas in your life. Would that be right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
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 Yeah.
There's no
Wow.
doubt then that that the people who keep on moving forward and keep persisting when everything seems lost, there is always hope just around the corner. If you can just keep going forward, then something good will happen.
Oh, I love that. Just keep going forward. Tell me something. I don't even know what pentathlon is.
Tell us about that.
Don't
'cause
you
how
love
many-
that?
how
I'm
many-
such a
is it
sportswoman.
5? Is it? Tell us all.
I mean, what is pentathlon?
this one was talking about netball. You had to
I
sort
know,
of, you
and I got hit. My tooth came out. I went, that's it for
She's
sports.
got
for me."
trauma over that.
Never.
haven't you?
I'm
Exactly.
traumatized for
I love
life.
that.
She was such a bitch. She put her elbow in. Oh, I was like, right, and took my tooth out. Anyway, that's another story. So what is pentathlon?
It's a great sport. It was created by the founder of the modern Olympics. His name's Baron Pierre de Coubertin.
You know him.
Yeah, that guy.
We all like a baron in our life, don't we?
All your life's barren. One of the two,
well,
yeah.
that's true.
He did a remarkable thing in creating the modern Olympics, right? But he did a pretty nasty thing when he did create those Olympics. He designed the pentathlon to be the showcase of the ultimate soldier. So someone who could set out on horseback to carry a message from headquarters to the front line at war. And once they would run into the enemy, they'd need to fight them with their pistol. If things went wrong, you'd have to, or if you ran out of bullets, you'd have to use your sword. Finally, you would come to a river, your horse couldn't cross that, so you'd need to swim across and then run the final distance. So the 5 sports are running, swimming, fencing, shooting and show
Hold
jumping.
on, so running,
Wow.
swimming, fencing, which is like the sword thingy with the helmet on, yeah. And the other one is?
Shooting
And there's another one.
Shooting.
Hang on, shooting.
Yeah.
and show jumping.
And show jumping.
Okay, did you get all that? My brain's
talk
hurting.
about diverse.
And show jumping. Were you a horsewoman previously?
Yeah, that's how I got into
Okay.
pentathlon.
That
so
makes
it's
me
right.
feel better.
Yeah.
You and I just
exactly.
couldn't
No,
do that
no,
horsey bit at the
exactly.
end.
Not the horsey. Giddy
Okay,
up part.
so that's like, let's just throw in 5 sports. You know?
But they're really beautiful, and talk about resilience. Maybe the greatest disappointment in my young life was in 1995. They announced that women would, for the first time in 100 years, be part of the Olympic program. So men were specifically part of the Olympics since 1896. And that was because Pierre's vision was that if every country was sending their finest military combatants in to compete at the Olympic Games, they wouldn't need to go to war. They could define who the best, most powerful military forces were through this competition. Great idea, but in part of his constitution, he said, and the women will never compete, they'll stay home and give birth to the next generation of modern pentathletes. And so...
Our times have changed.
Yeah.
Changing.
Well,
Changing,
not in my
exactly.
time, though,
No,
because
but
in...
that's a hard thing.
Yeah, in 1995, they announced we would be in, but very quickly they also said, sorry, but we didn't build enough accommodation for the athletes, and so we've had to axe it. You'll have to wait another 4 years.
And 4 years,
Of
it's
course.
wow.
Right. That's beyond.
It was pretty disappointing.
You know what?
Yeah.
It intrigues me. Nikki and I both had has sons that row. I find that a really full-on sport. Being a mother of rowers, you get to
Early
witness it.
hours
It's
and
like,
dedication, isn't it?
You know, there was one thing I recognised as a sport, as a sports person, which I'd never had that opportunity in my life, was one morning my son, who rowed for Australia, he was rowing one morning at 5 o'clock, and I said to him, "Oh my God, you're so tired, and there's so much going on, and will you be able to do it?" And he turned to me, and I've got goosebumps. I've had goosebumps
You
non-stop in this
have?
interview.
Ooh.
He said to me, "Mum, when I place that oar in," he's the stroke, he's the head of the boat. It could be a 4 or an 8. When I place that oar in, and it pushes the weight of the water, I hear the whoosh. I have the sparkle of the sun coming up in the morning, sprinkling over the water. And he said, and it's this rhythm, and it's repetitive, and I'm on such a high. And I guess then was the moment when I realised mind, how important the mind is with sport. Now, you're all sportswomen, I'm not. And the penny dropped for me, like how imperative that is to calm that while you get into that repetitive sort of sport. Like, tell me about the mindset, like, behind that in sports.
Yeah, it's crucial, and it's a really interesting question. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that before. So it's interesting when I think about the answer, because it's very different depending on which phase of your sport you're in. So what I mean is whether you're in a training block, whether you're preparing for the race, or if you're waking up on the day of the race. And I'm sort of referring more to triathlon, which became my main sport.
Yes.
And so
3, not 5.
your mind, it's so easy to go back to 3. But your mindset is quite different depending on which part of your preparation and or racing schedule that you're in. And so during a really good sort of example of that would be, I trained in a squad of only men, and I managed to persuade the coach to take me, even though he had a strict policy, no women. He thought that they were too difficult.
Go, Nikki.
Anyway, I would train so hard and wake up in the morning before the next session, and I'd sort of open my eyes, and before I even moved a muscle, I was in agony. Everything was aching. And I'd lie there with tears running down my cheeks, thinking, I just can't do this. And then very quickly my mind would say, well, hang on a minute, someone somewhere is training harder than you, so get up and go. And that would be the one mindset kind of thing I'd always defer to, because, you know, I wanted to win. And so if that was the strategy that it took to get up and go again and train harder and be better, then that was...
The voice in your head.
Yeah. But interesting, on race day, it had to be the opposite. I had to really focus on staying calm.
Isn't that amazing?
It is interesting.
Yeah.
The switch.
And the reality is, when you're tapering, your energy levels really shoot up, and you go from one extreme, which is total exhaustion even before you've started training that day, to the other end, which is like you're overflowing and you're ready to go, and you're tapered down to this point where you're going to fly. And I would have to try very hard to focus on remaining calm, because I was very kind of flighty, and I could totally blow my race up before the gun even went if I didn't remain very focused and calm. You need to really be on. And
what did you do to stay focused and calm?
I had a whole series of sports psych exercises. The first thing I would do is, and this was the 1990s, so this was brand new, right? Now I think we pretty much all know how to do this.
Can you translate this for our listeners into life tips?
Yeah,
exactly.
So it's kind of a basic meditation exercise these days, but back then it was like revolutionary. So I would concentrate really hard on feeling a sense of pins and needles in my toes, and I would almost manufacture this feeling. And I would take that feeling all the way up through my body and then down to my fingertips and up to your earlobes. I think we've all done it in yoga or meditation practice now. But back then I was like really cutting edge. In fact, I remember doing the first Pilates classes in the country back then too. So I would sort of go through different processes. Another would be that I every single day before the race would have one slice of toast with Vegemite, and wherever in the world I was, I would carry Vegemite with me specifically so I could return to the routine. Toast with Vegemite and a cup of tea. Sounds kind of not usual.
Interesting you're saying that, because so many athletes or people have their rituals, don't they? Whether it's tennis and they bounce the ball 3 times before they do something, and yours is the Vegemite on toast.
Yeah.
Mine's how many times I lift my champagne glass.
That might be my strategy now.
How many times do I lift it? Too many. I always finish mine before hers. Sorry, I totally always digress.
Yeah.
No, well, that's probably my better plan these days.
I've always got a stronger right arm, don't I? Don't have to do weights so much on the right arm.
You need to focus in and try and keep things balanced.
It's true.
Yeah,
Reach with the left. Nikki, we'll take
We're
all
dying to get
that.
to Tanya, but we have to ask Nikki about the Sea Eagles. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah. Now
We have to.
We have to. Can you
Sorry,
tell us
Tanya.
the story?
Yeah.
Because also you're not that far from the hood, from our back fence,
No.
where we share a back fence, and you're involved with the Sea Eagles, Manly. So tell us a bit about it.
Yeah, what?
And what happened?
And also
with
a
Wendy
couple of the
Harmer,
women
'cause
we've interviewed. Lane
Lane Beachley, Wendy Harmer,
and we're going
Tune
to get
in to listen
Sarah
to all
O'Hare
those ones.
/ Murdoch.
Yes, yeah.
The story's just brilliant. It has to be told, because I could tell it time and time again. I love it.
Well, I think the reason you would love it best is because it was the best example of a group of women coming together to do something magnificent. And the
You've got to
interesting,
hear it, guys.
the interesting thing, this is well before women in league was a thing. So I get a phone call from the CEO of the Sea Eagles, and he said, look, I've got Sarah Murdoch and Wendy Harmer coming in next Tuesday at 4:00. Can you make it? And so when I arrived, there was a meeting underway, and the meeting was about how the Sea Eagles was having a very, very difficult financial crisis. And they asked if we could do something to try and help. The players hadn't been paid for a period of time. They really needed to act fast to get some money into the cash flow and pay the players so that the club wouldn't go under. Very quickly.
What year is this? What are we talking?
2001.
Okay.
So very quickly we pulled together an event. Sarah really was an incredible ambassador. She was sponsored by, or the ambassador for Bonds at the time. So we put together some quirky, fun ideas. But the driving force was Wendy Harmer.
We love Wendy.
We love her.
Yeah.
Remarkable, and I guess probably interesting that despite the fact that she's a Victorian and probably born and bred in the AFL country, she was
Nothing wrong with that, Nikki.
Tisha over here, yeah.
very, very close friends, if not besties, with Jeff Tuvey, who was one of the coaches at the time. So we were passionate about saving the seagulls. We pulled together a group of 16 women who were
All
unbelievable.
local girls? 'Cause
All
I know
local
Wendy
women.
And Lane and
Yep.
Sarah, all local, yeah.
Annie Sargent.
As in Northern
Thinking
Beaches.
of
Yes.
Of the
Oh,
netball.
Annie,
Yeah.
she's
The
in
netballer.
Elwood.
Yeah.
She's over our back
She
fence.
is.
Yeah.
Netball.
Yeah.
Played for
Louise
Australia.
Savage, another superstar.
Yes.
Shelley Taylor-Smith,
Oh.
Deb
Incredible.
Watson. There were, and Kerry Pottas, there were probably 6 or 7, actually if you include Lou Savage, probably like 35 gold medals at the Olympic level.
How fabulous.
Yeah, so it was a really powerful group of women. Within
So
a couple
what
of
the hell
months.
I
did
love
you do?
this. Don't ever underestimate
no.
women. And when women come
I'm
together,
loving this.
Yeah.
And so what
Things
did you
happen.
do?
Well, very quickly we held an event and raised $300,000.
Wow.
Yeah, and
can you
and
repeat that? What was that?
300.
Well done.
which might not sound like a very big
It's a
number
lot.
in
We're talking
2025.
25,
No,
yeah.
back then that's
Yeah.
it's
a lot.
massive.
The equivalent of a lot more.
And what did you do?
It was an event at the Manly Seagulls, the Leagues Club, and we had a fashion show hosted by Sarah. So we got the players in some bonds, and
But that would have been a sellout.
That's a winner.
yeah,
Could do 5.
Exactly.
it was a good old fashioned. There was a lot of comedy. Obviously, we had Wendy. There was comedy. I
Hysterical.
think there was some boxing. There was all sorts of activities going on, but it was the beginning of something very special. And over the course of the next 6 or 7 years, we raised over $6 million for the club.
What?
And really,
Congratulations.
really helped them. I feel that without the support of this group of women, and as I said, spearheaded by Sarah and Wendy, we would never have gone on to win quite a few premierships to follow. And
You know,
for everyone
what a
listening
great
here,
story.
that is just fantastic.
Yeah.
When women come together, you can do a lot. Now we're going to
Yes.
go across to my gorgeous friend
Yeah, Tanya.
Now,
Bless.
we met. Wasn't that fun when we met at Fraser Island?
Fraser Island, now
Tell us
Gary.
about what she did in the tent. Did she
Now,
fast?
did we share it? Now, tell the story about sharing a tent. Then we want to hear about you.
Seriously.
But it was just so funny, wasn't it?
Oh, Nicola and I arrived on Naugari, Fraser Island, and I was going on my first big hiking trip. Nicola, was
Same.
it your
Yeah,
first?
it was.
Was
I
Nicola's
thought
first?
you were
And,
seasoned, Nicola.
we kind of saw each other and went, "Oh, tall, blonde.
Yes.
Here we go.
Yeah, here
Here's
we
my
go.
new friend."
Exactly.
Little did we know that they'd put us both into one 2-man tent. To
Did you
sleep.
fit? Because you're both tall.
Well,
Get
this
the
is the
feet
best.
out.
I was general manager of Wild
So
Woman
you
on
know
Top,
in
which
this
was the
world.
group
Do you
that
know
we
what?
went
I
away
actually
with.
didn't know that.
Oh yes, yeah.
And
God,
so
you're
I pulled a
dynamic.
couple of strings, found an extra tent, and we pitched our tents face to face. And so we ended up not sharing, but we were basically, we had our own
And
back
it was the
fence.
best,
Lovely.
wasn't it? It was so funny because all the others had to share. Remember when I saw the tent and I said, I actually thought it was a one-man tent. And I just said, there's no way you and I are going to share that tent. And then you said it's two. But then you said, actually, there might be a spare one. And we
I
had
love
to
it.
keep it a secret from all the others. So we put our tents there. And it rained, but we were fine. But that was funny. But tell us a little bit about you. Now, you're from South Africa, is that right?
I am originally from South Africa.
And then
I've
your
been-
mum are too. And tell us what brought you out to Oz and tell us a little bit about yourself.
I married an Aussie, so I
Wise
I
woman.
don't know why, but I've always had this thing about the Aussie accent. And I was in a pub one night called the Brass Monkey.
Yeah, we love that. Yeah.
And I heard this voice and I went, oh, Aussie. and
Oi,
the first,
oi, oi.
Magnet.
first words I said to the poor man was, I'm going to
fabulous.
marry you.
Are you serious? Are you
Dead
serious?
serious.
Not like a few beers to get you going. I love
That is
it.
gold.
How
You set an
cool.
intention, and there we go.
And he said, I'm just running out the door
This
now.
guy, today's my lucky day. You know,
How fabulous.
He was a bit sort of, oh, who's this
bet.
woman?
this quiet, shy woman.
Anyway,
I
18
love an
months
honest
later,
woman.
we were married and we moved to Finland and lived in Helsinki for 2 years, which was quite different and sort of, I guess it fits with my adventurous spirit. I love doing things that are a little bit adventurous, a little bit off the wall, hence the Sydney Skinny and Wild Woman on Top and Coast Trek. So, just enjoyed that. And then we moved to Australia. So I've been here 18 years, and I always counted on my youngest because I came over when I was pregnant with him. And it's just been a great, great place for us to settle and make a little family. And I'm now divorced from said Aussie, but he's like my brother. We're wonderful friends.
That's really lovely.
You know the white woman on top, the one you did with me, it was a 20K.
Di Westerway has been a guest on our podcast too. She's amazing.
We do it down in Portsea.
Oh, that's right. This one.
She's
cheeky.
I was a bit tired during the walk, and I saw a detour.
Yeah, and Di's just going, I'll be back in a minute, Nicola. 2 hours later.
And then I met them at the end and they gave me a medal and I went and celebrated with them. I thought, this is great. And I did tell Di Westaway in an interview, I said, I've got something to tell you. And she went, but I'd had salmonella 3 days before. So that was which is the truth. Excuse. And that was my excuse.
But
she went, Di went, then you're allowed. That's okay.
That's
good. I was like, I carried that. But look, great cause, and we've done quite a few walks with White Women on Top.
And what got you sort of into sort of like the charities and these organisations? What sort of
I spent many years working in corporate. I worked in IT and most notably medical IT companies, and I just saw the waste of government money, people that just wanted to make money for their own gain and didn't really have any altruistic nature to them, greedy, just didn't sit well with me. And I actually decided to take some time off. So I was going to take time off and spend time with my little family. And then I got bored within about 2 weeks and decided, what shall I do? And I did a master's degree. And then I realised whilst I was doing that,
just fill it in.
You actually need to be working so that you can work your case studies and things into that. And so I started looking around, found a job at Wild Woman on Top as a general manager, and I thought this would be a great little business to actually do these case studies on. And 6 years later, after joining them, I became co-owner of the business. So, it was a great
brilliant
journey.
Setup. So how did you go from that to mental health?
Well, Wild Woman on Top, Co-Strec, we used to fundraise for Beyond Blue.
Right.
And I've
Such
always...
a good charity, isn't
brilliant.
it?
Yeah.
There's just so many out there.
I lost my dad to suicide when I was quite old already.
Yes.
Older, not old yet. So mental health's always been really close to my heart. I've got an older son that struggles quite a bit. And so, I just think it's something that government doesn't put enough of investment behind. And I don't think that we're keeping up with ways to help people and to find early intervention services, because mental health, as we know, is intergenerational. You carry it through from you, as Nikki said, in vitro. And I don't think there's a good understanding that if you can head that off early in life. I've learned so much now. I wish I could go back because I could do so much more for my son now than...
Well, can you tell us a bit now? So, we've got, people even listening, and it could be their grandchild, it could be... And there are sort of some, indications of things that may sort of be I don't know, look, it's not kind of like maybe the norm or whatever, unusual.
Just symptoms.
Yeah, symptoms.
Emerging.
And tell us sort of like now what is available, like so with the B Centre, how it helps and
we loved it because it's a really gentle approach.
Can you just tell us a bit more about it?
So
we love it.
B Centre is a very special place. So first of all, people think it's B as in a busy bee.
Yes.
It's not. It's B. It's a place where that child can just be who he needs to be or she needs to be at any given time. The founder of B Centre, Deborah Killalay, has actually just been given an Order of Australia, which is so well deserved.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Gorgeous.
And her vision was to create a space where every child could get the help that they need, but at their own level. And so we offer play therapy for children aged between 3 and 12. And it's a therapeutic way where the child actually leads their own journey in terms of expressing their trauma. And so when they go into one of the playrooms, they choose the toys that they play with, and they choose the pace at which they tell their story and the pace at which they then rewire their brains and, learn to deal with the trauma in their life. So
in a gentle way. I keep saying that.
It is a very gentle approach.
Yeah,
There's no pushing.
No.
And what makes us different is that we work with the child until the child is ready to leave. So we don't cut them off after 10 sessions or 12 sessions. So they will work with their therapist for as long as they need to work through their trauma and to be able to sit with their feelings, express their feelings, and know that it's okay to have those feelings. Because very often people say, oh, don't cry, don't, know, and during their therapy, they taught that it's okay to cry, it's okay to be angry. It's what you do with that emotion and how you handle it that builds the resilience and the ability to be able to go forward in life and be more resilient and be more functional in your emotions.
So it's not confronting, is it? Do you know what I mean? Like I studied holistic counselling a long time ago, and just the very nature of, tell me where you're at, how do you feel about that, whatever. It can make people, not necessarily even just children, just want to hide under the table, but something to actually express yourself, as I keep repeating the word gentle, through a toy or a block or a painting or whatever.
Hand puppets or
it's
anything.
so logical, since the beginning of time.
And what's the science behind it? Because some people might be thinking play therapy, I don't really understand that, how that works,
So it's all steeped in neuroscience, and the father of play therapy is Gary Landreth, and he created this sort of framework, I guess, that play therapists work under. And our play therapists they would have an undergraduate degree in mental health, nursing, social work. So that would be their undergraduate, and then they would do a postgraduate master's degree in play therapy, and it's basically a way of therapeutically leading the child on that journey to be able to deal with their trauma. So it's
such an important thing, because you sort of think of things in life, and if everything goes back basically to your childhood, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So you can kind of nip it in the bud a little bit, or give as much support as you can for these early years. It's just
what
as
do the
wonderful.
Jesuits say? Show me a boy of 5 and I'll show you a man for
7.
life.
Yes, yeah.
We can change that now. Show me a person.
Yes.
But as Nikki alluded as well, we work with what we call the whole family system. So it's not just about the child.
Yes,
Often,
very true.
Often it's about the parents' behaviour and how they show up for the child. So we obviously have a very long wait list, and while the child is on that wait list, we might even start the work with the parents prior to that, to start priming them, showing them some of the elements of play therapy and how they can actually just, I guess, set the tone in their household and quieten it down a little bit. And very often by the time the child starts their therapy, you've already seen some changes happening in the family.
Amazing. And for just listeners too, where is the B Centre? And is there something for interstate or people from sort of around the world? Are there any similar things? So how do people tap into it?
And how can they help also financially?
B Centre is based in Warriewood in the Northern Beaches, but we've actually
Sydney,
we've actually just started a teleplay therapy study with Deakin University and in partnership with Royal Far West.
Great.
And so that's allowing us to be able to do telehealth, but play therapy to children in rural and remote areas. So a lot of the time those children won't be able to travel to even get the therapy that they need. And we know that a lot of kids, I think it's something like 60% of children that need mental health services don't ever get the help that they need. And so they go on to become dysfunctional adults, or they go on to... You have things like school refusal. There's so much government funding going into adolescent health. And if we could just get to those kids when they are younger, and if we knew what to look for, and it is little things like the child losing their school suitcase or their shoes, or they've got a sore tummy and they keep going into the sick bay, or they might just put it in the back of the class.
Putting the shoe in the bin.
Putting the shoe in the bin.
I mean, there's many ways.
And how's it funded?
That can be.
Well, a lot of hard work goes into funding it. We don't get much government funding. Less than 1% of our funding comes from government. And we're working really, really hard to try and lobby.
We'll be putting sort of all the information on our show notes. And I believe that there's a big ball coming up as well.
Yeah,
I don't know if there's still tickets available
when is
or
that,
not.
by
But
the way?
Yeah, absolutely. On the 30th of May, mark your calendars.
I've circled it, and I saw that
Yeah.
Regan is the singer.
Regan Derry.
Did she win Australian Idol?
She didn't.
Oh, 'cause
She didn't win. She was one of the
One of the
finalists,
finalists. She's
and she was
amazing.
nominated for an ARIA award. She has.
met her at the Arias.
She has
Bring her
an
back.
Sounds like that. So is there
incredible
tickets available?
We do still
That's
have
one
tickets
way to
available.
give back, guys, is go and have some
And
fun.
It's a wonderful evening at the Manly Pacific.
We'll be there with
30th
our
of May.
heels up,
Yeah.
having a boogie
I hope it's in
woogie.
my diary. I just wanted, because we're always heading towards, we're in trouble with time. I want to sort of do a broad question or statement with either of you respond is, they've both heard, the listeners have heard both of you talking about giving back to society through various charities. Ultimately, a lot of people talk about the gift to self that you receive from giving. Can you just elaborate a little bit further on that for the listeners that might be going, I don't know what I want to do now. The kids have left home. I don't know where I'm at. Can you encourage someone listening to say it's a gift for self?
Oh, I can definitely jump in and say
Please
that.
do.
In fact, I took the job that I'm currently doing at the Giants Foundation because I have not
And what's
just...
that, Nikki? What's the
I'm the
Giants?
general manager.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, yeah, just for our...
What is the Giants
Yes,
Foundation?
yeah.
We are an organisation that's set up to utilise the platform of sport. So we've got a netball, an AFLW and an AFL team, all of whom performing on the national stage. So we're on TV. Each of our athletes have got a big profile and a big opportunity to have big impact. And whether that's changing behaviour, which might be influencing children to eat a better diet or exercising more, or on the other end of the spectrum, helping to raise funds for organisations like the B Centre, where we want to be able to help our community be healthier, happier, stronger. So I can tell you as a fact that when I first arrived to the Giants and spoke to the athletes about what they could do and the impact they could have, some of them got involved for the very first time, volunteering, giving, and all of them now are feeling incredibly grateful that they've got this opportunity, that they can make a contribution. And so it's important, I think, to note that it doesn't have to be necessarily only about giving a lot of money. Maybe you can give the value of a cup of coffee once a week, because regular giving helps charities in a profound way. If they know that an extra $5 is arriving each week or each month, and you can multiply that by a few hundred people, suddenly you can fund a play therapist to help children in the community. So there's lots of different ways you can be involved. It doesn't need to be hundreds or thousands of dollars.
It can be time.
And that was exactly my next point.
Yeah.
You can also volunteer. So I know the B Centre dinner coming up, the gala, there will be definitely a need for volunteers to help sell raffle tickets. And
Well, there you go. If
set up-
anyone was
That's
listening
fun. I mean, that's
to
fun.
DM us,
Yeah.
and we'll sort of
But
connect you up,
ultimately,
because
when you go to bed at night, do you go, oh, I feel good. That was a rewarding day.
Yeah, it's a good blend, like doing anything. You know, sometimes you've got your challenges and your disappointments, but if you just keep on marching forward, you're going to eventually turn a corner and get a big success. And when I joined the Giants Foundation, we just raised $300,000 the year.
There's something about
year
you
prior.
with 300,000.
I know, it's a
I
funny
know,
number,
exactly.
isn't it?
There's giants of women, aren't they? There's
Oh, well
ones.
said. I love that.
At the end of my second year there, we're just about to report we've raised $3.1 million. So
Well, congratulations.
that doesn't make
Yeah.
you feel warm and fuzzy, seriously.
it's about
Yeah.
getting the money to the grassroots
Yeah.
where there is need.
Yeah.
And we're very focused on sick kids, which includes children suffering trauma and crisis, and the area that the B Centre is helping. So sick kids and mental health are our two very big priority areas. And that's as voted by our entire organisation. The athletes, all of our staff voted on the cause areas where we could have the greatest impact, and they're the two that we picked. So
How
funnily
rewarding.
enough,
Yeah.
B Centre
What
sits
about
across
you,
both.
Tanya?
Yeah. What about
Yeah.
you, just to encourage some of our listeners to get involved with giving back?
To me, I just believe that every child should have a great start in life. So when I hear the stories, we have a weekly triage meeting for children that have been referred to us. And when I hear stories of schools that want to expel a child that might be 8 years old because they're unruly in class, or a child that wants to harm themselves because they don't feel like they fit in, I don't want to live in a world like that, and I don't think children should experience those things. So I wake up every single day and think, it's bloody hard to be a CEO of a charity, I can tell you that, but I wake up every single day and I go, today I get the chance to make a difference.
Look, you're making me. Why am I getting so emotional in all of this?
And that's what I want to do with every single day of my life.
Well,
I just
you know what?
I just felt your
Bravo.
energy.
I know.
so
Actually,
strong.
I've got a bit
washed
of
over
a
me.
tear, and I think my lashes.
That is
my fakies are
magnificent.
gonna
Honestly,
come
you
off.
too. I mean, I am in awe of you both.
Yeah.
I vote. I honestly vote you for Prime Minister.
I reckon both of them now.
No,
they're
it's not.
going to share.
She's going to have a portfolio. I'm telling you now, in your cabinet, with looking after and nurturing children. So there you go. You got my vote.
Excellent.
Well, the election's coming up.
That's what I'm saying. It's election
Exactly.
time. I thought it was appropriate.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Okay, here we
Well,
go.
we are
Here we go.
at the stage of asking our famous signature questions. And now I'm going to throw it out there. Whoever wants to jump in first.
Go.
What makes you happy?
Oh, my dogs.
Hey, that was left
I
field.
never
I
had-
didn't expect that.
I
wow.
don't have to. They
Woof,
are
woof.
always happy to see me.
I don't think we've ever had that.
They're the best snugglers in the whole world.
Because you might say that,
Hey,
actually.
I'm on your team too.
Yeah,
What sort of
right.
doggies have you got?
I've got pug crosses.
Oh, how
I bought them off the
cute.
internet.
How
They were
many
cheap
have you
as
got?
chips.
Oh.
But I love them. There's 2 of them.
Oh, okay.
And I tell you what, they're good therapy, aren't they?
Don't
Oh,
worry.
I
What's
mean,
your,
my dog's
what's
a
your
cock-
husband and son's name? She meant to say you, but the dogs just had a little bit of
Look,
go at
they
it.
know where they sit in the pecking
Well, it's funny.
order.
I've got a dog, and he's
Oh
a
my
cocker
God.
dog, and they're meant to
So
be
funny.
therapy dogs. But I think I need therapy from having him, friend. But they're the best. What about you, Nikki?
Yeah, what about you, Nikki?
Well,
Nikki?
I recently
Oh my God.
added a 4th grandchild. So I've got a 5-year-old, Matilda, twin boys who are 2, Felix and
Wow.
Rory, and little Reggie arrived 3 weeks ago. So
Wow.
Wowza.
I'm having my
You're in the
second.
club.
My
You're
second's
in the
coming
club.
in
A girl's
2
coming
weeks.
soon, isn't it?
I haven't had a
yes,
girl,
yes.
like as in 2 boys and one grandson. So I'm looking forward
this
to.
is special.
That's so.
I just got
I'm
back
so
from Hawaii
excited
and brought all the
too.
little dresses.
Little Aries, I
Yeah,
think,
it's
which-
exciting.
which is
so
great.
next question. What's the next one?
You choose.
I'm going to throw it like Nicola out to you both, whoever wants to answer. Just very brief word of advice to your 21-year-old self. Anything you'd like to say to her?
I wouldn't change a thing.
Oh.
Yeah. I think the
I haven't
thing.
had that either.
Wow.
We've not had that
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, I would go back and say, you've got this. You're going on exactly the right track, and you're where you're meant to be, and you're living the way it's supposed to pan out. And that's a tough thing to say because obviously there's been a lot of pain and suffering and challenges in the time. And the one thing I would say is that I wouldn't change a single thing that happened because my kids are phenomenal, and the only reason they are is because of the experience that they had. And there were times that were deeply troubling, like when we needed the B Centre desperately to keep our family together and okay. We are amazing. And I was listening to you describe the passing of your very close friend, your mum's friend, and it reminded me of probably the greatest achievement in my life, which is how incredibly well we looked after my husband to the very end. And all 5 of my children and their partners around that bedside 24
Healthy.
hours and taking care of him all the way to the end. It's the greatest privilege to take care of someone at the end. And it's interesting because when you have children in your life, you feel like every time one is born, this is the greatest thing that would ever happen to me. And I can tell you, hands down, loving someone to the end is an even greater privilege and
I'm
responsibility.
doing it again.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
so beautiful.
Take me anywhere but into a studio with
I
you
know.
two.
Tanya?
Oh, that was
What
magnificent.
advice would you give?
Oh, I'd be
Beautiful
I'd be
self.
right up there with Di and say you don't have to party so hard.
That's great. I love that.
I love that. That is
I
so
love
funny.
that contrast,
I
the
love
beauty
it.
and all of
And
that.
I'll throw it to you. If you could share a back fence with anybody on planet Earth,
Tanya, yeah.
who would it be and why?
Look, you told me this question was coming, and I've thought long and hard about it. And I was going to say, something profound like
Yes.
Bessel van der Kolk or whatever.
Yes.
But I actually think I would like to share back fence with Mrs. Doubtfire.
Oh,
I
bring the
give-
fire out on a
That
boob.
is just-
I
love
give
it.
so much of
Thanks for
myself
that one.
that I think it would be nice to have somebody nurturing living
Wow.
behind me and just sort of nurturing me.
love
for
That
it.
film.
is
I'm
funny.
gonna watch that film
We all
again.
need a
Love
Mrs.
it.
Doubtfire
We
in our
do,
life.
we do, we
We've
do,
never
we
had
do.
that one as well too.
It was brilliant film.
Wow.
Brilliant.
And
the
Nikki?
concept
so
behind
too.
it.
Yeah.
So
That's
good.
gold.
And yeah, Nikki.
I'd have
what's-
to set up a commune, move my back fence to have all of my children right over the back fence there.
Oh,
I
wow.
That
love
sounds a bit
that.
corny, I know.
No, it's not
No,
corny at all.
It's
Bruno Mars might be handy.
But he could sing, and we
Tick.
could all
Yeah.
watch the concert.
Tick.
We'd be there in the
Tick.
brunch.
Yeah, I like that. Well,
sounds like
well,
fun.
look, everybody,
Oh,
thank you
dear.
both so much.
What a beautiful!
From our
I
hearts.
feel so warm
I
and
know.
happy, and I hope you guys
For
are too.
joining
That
in
was
at the
great.
back fence. We're all in the hood together. And for everybody there, it's the B Centre, and there's so many other charities out there. It is really good to give, but you've certainly sort of like, I've learnt so much today, and, kind of in awe of you women. And,
that's an understatement.
yeah, absolutely. So, and so everyone, thank you for listening.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Don't forget to rate and review this, and also share this one to people who may, we've all got some friends there or people there who can have some struggles in their life, or something might have a great sort of thing to sort of like with resilience. Share this episode. We're on YouTube as well.
We're everywhere.
And,
they
so
can't escape
we
us.
like
as
the,
I
we
say.
like the ratings and we like the stars. And I hand it over to Dinah because she's got her own system, haven't you?
Oh, well,
so what do you think
yes.
for these ladies
And
here?
you know
What do
me,
you
I'm
rate
always
them?
left of centre.
Exactly. Yeah. So how does it go with the? 'Cause
I
you're
don't
a
know
double
why.
here.
I don't
You
know
got-
why, but it's
Nikki and
stuck in my
Tanya.
head. 300,000 out of 5.
Oh, where did that come
It's out of
from?
5, the rating. I reckon 300,000, because that's where we're aiming with the B Centre with the ball.
Yeah.
Because Nikki has raised that several times, so she'll be involved, no doubt. So how about 300,000 out of 5?
I love it all. So
You reckon
yeah.
aim high, I say. That's all I can
Aim
say.
high,
Aim
yeah.
for the stars,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, thanks again, and
Absolutely.
everyone.
You never know where you're going to
Thank you
land.
for listening, and we'll be back in your ears
love
next
you all.
week. Yeah,
Ciao,
ciao, ciao.
guys.
Bye
Bye.
bye.